You're standing inside a stone chamber that smells of mildew and fear. It's past midnight, July 3rd, 1793, in the Temple prison. A cold draft sweeps under the door as boots thunder up the stairs, deliberate, synchronized. Like a verdict marching closer, you look over and see her, Marie Antoinette. No longer a queen, just a mother lying beside her sleeping 8-year-old son. Her hand rises and falls with the tiny rhythm of his breath. It's the one sound keeping her anchored to sanity. Then the door bursts open. 6 men flood the room, their lanterns throwing long, distorted shadows across the walls. They hold a document sealed with the authority of a government that knows no mercy. And suddenly everything in the room shifts. They've come for the boy. What follows is not a political act. It's not even punishment. It's tactical. A form of psychological warfare refined over months as they studied her every weakness. And this, her son, was the only crack in her armor. What happened in the next hour would be talked about in whispers by guards for years. By the end of those 60 minutes, Marie Antoinette will never be the same. And the guillotine, history's symbol of revolutionary terror, will pale in comparison to what was done before she ever reached it. If you believe stories like this shouldn't be buried, subscribe to the Historical Archives. These are the chapters empires hoped we'd forget, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Marie Antoinette's final 76 days remain one of the most deliberately orchestrated breakdowns in political history, before those boots ever touched the stone steps of the Temple. The revolutionaries had already written her obituary. They needed a villain. She was convenient, but the real Marie Antoinette was never the woman in their pamphlets. She was born Maria Antonia. Vienna, 1755, the youngest daughter of Empress Maria Theresa. Raised in a palace that taught diplomacy the way most children learn handwriting. At 14, she wasn't given a husband, she was given an assignment. Marry the future king of France and bind 2 empires together. She arrived in Versailles foreign, awkward, lonely. Even her husband, timid, bookish Louis, kept his distance. Their unconsummated marriage became a joke across Europe. Her clothing, her accent, her posture were inspected and ridiculed. She responded by creating a private world of escape. Gowns, music, late-night laughter at the Petit Trianon. Outside the palace gates, bread riots rumbled like a storm. The public wanted a reason for their suffering. She became the symbol of every injustice the monarchy had ever committed. By the time the revolution exploded in 1789, the image was set, the Austrian woman. The wasteful queen, the parasite, but by 1793, that caricature was dead. What survived was a mother, a widow. A woman who had already buried 1 child and watched another cling to her in the darkness of a prison cell. The revolutionaries believed she had nothing left to lose. They were wrong. She still had 2 children, and that made her vulnerable. And when a system of power identifies your vulnerability, it doesn't simply exploit it. It weaponizes it. To understand what they did to her, you need to understand the building around her. The Temple wasn't a prison in the modern sense. It was a contraption, stone engineered into submission, built by the Knights Templar centuries earlier. It had thick walls, narrow staircases, and chambers where time felt distorted. When the monarchy fell, the revolutionaries turned it into a containment facility for symbols living, breathing reminders of the old regime. The Committee of Public Safety monitored Marie Antoinette with clinical precision. Guards were instructed not just to watch her but to study her. Emotional reactions, conversations, patterns, vulnerabilities. They discovered something simple but devastating. Marie Antoinette could endure humiliation. She could endure hunger. She could endure isolation. But she could not endure fear for her children. So they began the pressure campaign. Her contact with her children was rationed like contraband. Guards sat inside their chambers, recording every gesture. The family was forbidden to speak German, her mother tongue stripping even their private moments of cultural familiarity. Her hair began to turn white. Her body weakened. She stopped eating. Her menstrual bleeding grew so severe she had to beg guards for cloth. But she still had her son and daughter. And so she still fought, which meant the revolutionaries needed to sever that final thread, and they chose the most brutal way to do it. You're back in that room, the boy. Louis Charles is half awake now, crying as strangers reach for him. Marie Antoinette becomes something unrecognizable even to the guards who have watched her 4 months. She wraps her arms around him, shielding him with her entire body. She refuses to move. She refuses to breathe unless he is in her arms. And she screams not like a queen, but like a mother who knows the world is about to collapse on her child's head. For an hour. The tower echoes with her voice. For an hour. She resists 6 men using nothing but desperation. For an hour. The guards witness something that will haunt them, but systems do not negotiate with heartbreak. They tear the boy from her arms. his screams spiral through the stairwell until they vanish into the belly of the prison. Marie Antoinette falls to the floor. Her body shakes. Something inside her fractures, and this is the part most textbooks skip. What they did next wasn't just separation, it was reprogramming. They took her son to a man named Antoine Simon, a cobbler loyal to the revolution. He was told not to educate the boy, but to unmake him. Louis Charles was locked in a small cell, forced to repeat revolutionary songs, forced to renounce his parents, forced to accuse his own mother of crimes he didn't understand. Whenever he resisted, he was beaten or starved until he complied. It was a state-sponsored rewriting of a child's identity, and Marie Antoinette heard nothing, only the silence created by walls that swallowed children whole within weeks. She was transferred to a place even darker. August 1st, 1793. Guards enter her room at AM. They don't let her say goodbye to her daughter. They don't let her dress. They escort her through the sleeping city, across the Seine, into the fortress known as the Conciergerie. This was not imprisonment. This was a waiting room for execution. They assign her a number, 280. Her name is erased. Her cell, 12 feet by 8. Damp stone, a straw mattress, a wooden table, and a candle that burns too quickly each night. 2 guards sit in the corner at all hours. She is given a privacy screen, an illusion of dignity, because the guards never look away. They watch her dress, undress, bleed, cry, sleep. The screen hides nothing. The guard's silence is its own violence. Her body continues to fail. Hair white, skin grey. Hemorrhaging worsening. She survives on sips of broth. She whispers prayers into her blanket and hopes her daughter is still alive. Some nights, the guards claim they heard her whisper only one name, Louis Charles. Louis Charles. And then the trial begins, a performance more than a proceeding, designed to convert vengeance into spectacle. When she enters the Revolutionary Tribunal on October 14, 1793, she no longer looks like a queen. She looks like someone the world has already devoured. The charges are predetermined: treason, conspiracy, draining the treasury, plotting with foreign enemies. She sits calmly. She answers methodically. She denies what is false and concedes what is human error. But the prosecutors need something bigger, something that destroys her public image permanently. So they introduce a final witness, a statement attributed to her 8-year-old son, under pressure. He had repeated the accusation the revolutionaries planted in his mind, that his mother had committed incest with him. The room stops breathing, for the first time in the trial. Marie Antoinette breaks. She rises slowly and faces not the prosecutors, not the judges, but the women in the audience. "I appeal to all mothers here," she says, her voice cracking. Nature refuses to answer such a charge made against a mother. The courtroom shifts. Even some of her enemies look away. For a moment the system falters, not out of mercy, but out of shame. But systems recover quickly. Hours later, she is declared guilty. The sentence: execution at dawn. Back in her cell, she is given paper and ink one final time. She writes a letter to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth. It is not political. It is not strategic. It is heartbreak on 4 pages. She writes about her children. She writes about forgiveness. She writes about fear, but never self-pity. She writes, "I lived only for them." She signs it simply, Marie Antoinette. The guards take the letter. They never send it. It disappears into an archive, unread by the woman it was meant for. Her final words were stolen like everything else. The last walk, October 16th, 1793. Morning, she is ordered to undress in front of the guards. Her morning gown is removed. Her hair hacked off roughly so the blade won't catch. Her hands tied so tightly behind her back that the rope cuts her skin. They put her in a tumbril, the open wooden cart reserved for the lowest criminals. The ride takes over an hour. People scream, spit, throw waste. An artist sketches her face from a window. His drawing survives, a thin, hollow figure with her back straight and her eyes set on something far away. She refuses to bow her head. At 12:15 p.m. She reaches the scaffold. She climbs the stairs, stumbles once and steps on the executioner's foot. Her last words: "Pardon me, sir. I did not mean to do it." A moment of courtesy in the heart of brutality. Because even after everything, after the humiliation, the surveillance, the weaponization of her son, the trial, the lies, she chooses dignity. Seconds later, the blade falls, what history tried to erase. Marie Antoinette's execution was not the climax. It was the epilogue. The true story, the one we just walked through, was the 76-day system built to break her, the separation from her children, the reprogramming of her son, the constant surveillance, the trial weaponizing an 8-year-old's coerced testimony, the final stripping of every human boundary. This was not rage, not chaos, not the people rising spontaneously. This was bureaucracy, policy, a machine. And yet what survives in the historical memory is not the system that tried to destroy her, but the woman who refused to surrender her humanity. Her last act was not defiance. It wasn't surrender. It was a simple apology, something only a human being, not a symbol, could give. T. The historical archives. We don't revisit these stories to glorify suffering. We revisit them because silence is the final stage of erasure. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. Because remembering is resistance, and we tell the stories that were never meant to survive. Now tell me in the comments, after witnessing those 76 days, who do you think Marie Antoinette really was? A villain? A victim? Or something far more complex?